Boilermaker fans, welcome into the channel. This is the Big Time Boiler. It has been a while since I've actually made a professional, semi-professional video on this channel. The last few I've done for my car. Life's been pretty busy for me, especially with work and my family. It's harder and harder to make these videos from an actual sit down in the studio, if you will, and record a decent video. But I had alluded to that I promised that I would make a season preview in somewhat detail fashion and kind of go through the schedule, kind of give a win-loss prediction, and kind of look at the depth chart. So without further ado, that's what we're going to do. And I've kind of, before I get into all of that, I've kind of mentioned on a couple previous videos that, Purdue has been picked, I think, by most of the media members and honestly most other fans of the Big Ten to finish near or at the bottom of the Big Ten Conference. In the official poll, they are picked 18th, which I honestly think is pretty absurd, considering that they return a quarterback, pretty good quarterback, probably a top 6 quarterback in the Big Ten, 2 starting running backs, and 4 offensive line starters, an All-American safety, and the 3rd leading sack getter in the Big Ten. And Kyler Jenkins. I mean, that's a lot of pieces to be finished 18th. Yeah, I know the schedule is kind of brutal, which we'll talk about a little bit, but I don't think this is the last placed Big Ten team. The Big Ten Network guys during their campus tours, and I know, that can be a kind of pump full of propaganda, if you will, about some Big Ten teams, but they're not always, I guess, totally honest, but I mean, Dave Revson, who's pretty accurate, was like, no way, shape, or form is this Purdue football team last in the Big Ten. And honestly, it's not close. I mean, to me, that tells me this is a middle of the pack Big Ten team. But you will say that schedule is kind of daunting. So I think that's why people are trying to, somebody's got to be 18th. So they're picking at 18th. And honestly, you know what? If they want to pick us at 18th, that's totally fine because that motivates the players, it motivates the coaches, and gives them a chip on their shoulder, which I'm okay with. I'd rather be almost picked 18th than like 12th. If you pick 12th, you're kind of you know what I mean? So, yeah. So basically what this video is going to entail, first, we're going to break down the depth chart. We are now at the point where the official depth chart has been released. There are a few injuries, so it's not necessarily full strength depth chart, but we'll go over that. I actually did create a depth chart that I posted on Gold and Black probably a month ago about my guesses about who would start, who wouldn't. And I wanted to do a video before the week of the game that kind of went over that, but unfortunately did not get a chance to do so. But I think I am going to still bring it up because I think that is the ultimate Purdue depth chart, what it's going to be like at full strength. Although, as you'll see, there are a few key players that I did not mention that are actually going to play a pretty big role this fall. So let's take a look at the depth chart that I made myself about a month ago. As I think, like I said, I think at full strength, this is, and I still think it is, this is kind of Purdue's ultimate lineup. All right. So yeah, this is who I had on offense. Probably left tackle is going to be Corey Stewart. Muhammad Musa at left guard, although there sounds like there might be a kind of battle going on there. Gus Hartwick back at center, DJ Wingfield right guard, and Marcus Bowe at the right tackle. Key backups: Joey Tenona, Bacon Coley, who I had at 3rd string here, he sounds like he's impressed. Luke Griffin, Jalen Grant, who started last year, and Josh Sales seem to be your kind of key contributors. And then probably Jimmy Liston's the backup. Actually, Jalen Grant's probably honestly the backup center. So your top 4 guys are probably Joey Tenona, Luke Griffin, Jalen Grant, and Josh Sales when it comes to backups. And then Jaden Ball, the true freshman, actually sounds like he's doing really well. He will be in there. As well as Bacon Coley, who has really changed his body. I think he's up to 310 after coming in at like 265, and he has impressed the coaches. So, I mean, right there, honestly, that's 11, 12 offensive linemen. I mean, that's for Purdue, it's kind of unheard of. Last year, we were down to I think 5 guys. Gus Hartwick at one point played right tackle. That's how banged up we were. Tight end, Max Clare's back healthy. That's big time. George Burhan, who came on late of the year, he's kind of banged up right now, but he's probably going to be your number 2 tight end. And then Drew Bibber, your 3rd string. Wide receiver number 1, Jamal Edrin. He is back and hopefully better than ever. He obviously tore his ACL week 1 of training camp last year in the early, I guess, early fall or late summer, if you will. He's back. Supposedly he's the real deal. I've heard from various sources that he is a big time receiver, so I can't wait to see him. Number 2 wide receiver is probably CJ Smith, who's going to miss game 1. One of the Georgia transfers, big time speedster. And also, if you play college football 25, he's one of the best players on there. The slot wide receiver is interesting. I had Jaden Dixon-Veal on here. He actually has missed a few weeks due to injury. That's why I don't think he's going to be on the depth chart. Actually, I don't know if he is on the depth chart for week 1. We'll take a look at that in a second. But he's kind of banged up right now. He kind of had a really good spring. Cam Brown's the other guy that they kind of have high hopes for, transfer from UCLA. He's been injured all spring and summer. I think he just started practicing a week or two. So, again, he'll probably won't play week 1. Andrew Swinski's in there, Mr. Reliable. Dylon Morissette, I had another Georgia transfer. Dron Tibbs, who's actually going to start. And then I had Tamara Harris on there, who looked pretty good in the spring. And the guy that I did not even have on there, again, is Shamar Rigby, who's going to start. Hudson Card, no surprise at quarterback. Devin Maccabee, Reggie Love in the backfield, and the blocker is going to be Ben Fernie. On the defensive side of the ball, I think, again, at full strength, you're going to see Joseph Anderson in one of the DN spots, Cole Brevard or Mo at the nose tackle, Jeffrey Imba, at the other DN spot. But there's going to be a lot of rotation here. I mean, you're going to have DeMar J. Lewis, Spider Dinkins, the Kentucky transfer, true freshman D'Amico Kennedy, who's impressed, is going to play. You might see some Joe Strickland in there, but that's your kind of mainstay guys. Now the edge rushers, again, this is a unique Purdue defense. This is like almost like a 5-1-5. They'll occasionally go 4-2-5. But it's going to be interesting because they brought, again, I mentioned earlier, Kydron Jenkins, who was the 3rd leading sack getter in the Big Ten last year. I think he had like 9 sacks, I want to say. They moved him from edge to probably his NFL position, middle linebacker. So he's going to start at middle linebacker. Yanni Karloftis, who I think has improved greatly, is going to be probably a quasi starter, depending on the formation. That's why I actually had 12 people mentioned here on the depth chart. And I think Kydron Jenkins probably is going to rush the passer on 3rd down. So there's going to be some kind of unique things there. But your outside rushers, I had CJ Madden starting, and Will Helt obviously I think is going to start. It's going to be the guy there. But the other starter sounds like it's going to be Sheeta Saleh, who's really impressed of late. He's going to be the starter with CJ Madden, who's banged up a little bit, backing him up. Again, another guy to look out for is Jaira Ajada, who I believe was at Franklin College last year, which is a D3 school, put up absolute monster numbers the last 3 years. And he looked pretty good in the spring game. I think he might be a situational pass rusher. Your cornerbacks, Nyland Green was going to be the guy. I think that was going to be your day 1 starter. However, he got hurt his foot. He's going to miss week 1. So Terrian Grant, who I actually had as his backup, is going to be the starter. That's a true freshman, early enrollee 5-star. This guy was supposed to be a 2025 recruit. Ended up reclassifying. I think, though, he was actually supposed to be normally in the 2024 class years ago. I'm not exactly sure what happened there. So he's actually of age to be a true freshman. He's going to start, which is pretty cool. Your other corner, Markevius Brown, who's now going to be number 1 until Nyland Green gets back. Backing up him, I had like Derek Rogers. Your safeties and your star position, Kydrick Breedlove, coming over from Colorado. Backed up by Coy Beasley and Salim Turner Muhammad. Dylan Thieneman at your free safety, your absolute stud safety there. And then Antonio Stevens at the other safety. Then kicker, I thought Spencer Porath would be the guy with Ben Freehill backing him up. And then Keelan Crimmins, the punter, who is transferred from Mississippi State, with RJ Lopez on the kickoff. And Nick Levy is the long snapper, who Nick came from. William & Mary, I think he came from. I could be wrong on that. He transferred from. So that is what the depth chart that I had. Now with that, let's actually go over to the actual depth chart of week 1, because it is a little different. All right, the official depth chart. And I won't go over this completely, but obviously, Card, Maccabee, Reggie Love. They have an or next to Reggie Love and Maccabee. Again, I think that's going to be a 1-2 punch. Shamar Rigby, big surprise there, starting receiver. Again, CJ Smith's hurt. Leland Smith is back up. Jaron Tibbs is going to start in front of Swinski and Morsetti. Jamal Edrin, again, I think he's going to be your number one receiver. Max Clare. They got Drew Bibber backing him up. George Burham's hurt. I don't know if I've said that. He missed quite a bit of the spring and the fall, early fall, late summer. They're probably going to get him along slowly. Corey Stewart, they have starting left tackle. He got banged up a little bit too, so I wouldn't be surprised if Joshua Sales starts there for week one. And get week one, this is like a preseason game, honestly, with Indiana State. And especially it's a preseason game in the sense of that we have a bye week. Purdue's got a bye week 2 before playing Notre Dame week 3. And that's pretty advantageous. Ryan Walters was actually quoted saying, at first he didn't like that week 2 bye. And originally, Purdue actually had a week 1 bye. They got it switched where Indiana State's now, they moved the Indiana State game. So they have a week 2 bye. But Walters said, originally I didn't like that. Now I love it because guys with the soft tissue injuries like Nyland Green, C.J. Smith, or even a Corey Stewart, or even a George Burham, they can rest these guys. They don't need them week 1. Rest them. Don't even play them. And then get them, and then in the bye week, let them rest as well, and then get them back for game prep of the week of Notre Dame. About Musa, the left guard, Gus Hartwick, DJ Wingfield, and Marcus Bowe. So no changes there, really. A guy to keep an eye on, though, again, is Bateman Coley. I don't know if I'm saying his name right. I apologize to Coley. Apparently, he's turned heads. He's kind of like you ever play college football back in the day. Your offensive lineman that went from like a 71 to got 9 points in the offseason is now an 80. It sounds like he's kind of made that kind of jump. And then another guy that's impressed is Joey Tanana, who 4-star Notre Dame recruit years ago, played at Zionsville High School, got in a car wreck. He was the passenger, I believe. Got pretty banged up, I think more from a head injury aspect. Retired from football for 2 years, decided he wanted to play, came back. He's got his playing weight was going to be the question. Apparently, he's already at 300 pounds, so he's got there. Defensive side of the ball, again, no big changes there from what I went over. You got Jeffrey Imba, Cole Brevard, or Mo. They have Joe Anderson or Jamar J. Lewis. Will Helt, one of the edges. Jenkins at the linebacker spot with Yanni. They do have Shida Saleh at the rush end with C.J. Matta and Trey Smith. Trey Smith came over from Illinois as the backups. Rakevius Browns with Jarek Rogers Jr., who played a lot last year as his backup. Dylan Thieneman with Joseph Jefferson. Antonio Stevens, Salim Turner Muhammad will be his backup. Bree Love. They got Coy Beasley in the 2 deep here. That's nice. Terry Grant starting with Bostras Alessandro as his backup. Special teams, the kicker situation is going to be interesting. They have Ben Freehill or Spencer Porath. So I think we'll see both of those guys week 1. Crimmins, no surprise there at punting. And then kick returner, Reggie Love and Elijah Jackson. Elijah Jackson is one of the walk-on running backs who's got a lot of speed. Punt returner, Dylan Thieneman, which I like, and then Swinski backing him up. Some people were a little are worried that Thieneman's going to get hurt. I mean, Cooper DeJean, he fielded punts, so I don't think there's going to be a problem there. But with that, yeah, that is the official depth chart of Purdue football. So, hopefully that wasn't too boring. Again, this is kind of a deep dive. What I really want to talk about now, I'm kind of going to go off the cuff here and talk about Purdue. I think this is a pretty overall talented roster. I really do. There's been some things in the past where you look at the depth chart and you see some holes. I really don't see a lot of holes in this Purdue depth chart at all. I mean, wide receiver room, there's a lot of talent there. Now, granted, a lot of it maybe not be a lot of it's not experienced, but you got some talent. So if those pieces can fit, which I think is going to be a key theme, the key theme is if those pieces can fit. I think that's your key theme. You're going to have a pretty good unit there, especially if C.J. Smith can get back healthy pretty quickly against Notre Dame. You're going to have a pretty good unit. And Cam Brown, too. I think Cam Brown's going to be an important piece as well. And then you got Shamar Rigby, who came out of nowhere. If that guy can be a good player, that'll be great. And then another name I've not mentioned, Leland Smith, JUCO transfer, who I think at one point played for TCU as a walk-on, maybe on the championship team or the championship game team they had. he's turned some heads as well. So pretty exciting unit, I think. We'll see how it goes there. And then running back, you got Maccabee and you got Reggie Love, a great 1-2 punch. True freshman Merriweather. I went back and watched the spring game. He's got some burst and pop to him. I do wish that Purdue had a little more options at running back, not so much as a 1-2 guy, but a third or even fourth guy. There's not a lot of depth there. Behind Merriweather is a bunch of walk-ons who have some potential, but again, they're not even upperclassmen walk-ons. They're like, I think redshirt freshmen. Excuse me. You'd like to see a guy like a Dylan Downing. I think would have been nice to keep around. But even if they brought in a guy with similar stats, even with some potential, that's maybe an upperclassman, that would have been great. They chose not to go that route. Hopefully it doesn't bite them. If injuries happen there, that might be an issue, but we'll see. Quarterback room, I think you're obviously going to be very good with Hudson Card. I think with this improved offensive line, he's going to be a stud, probably a top 5 quarterback in the Big 10 or the Big 18, if you want to say. He better not get injured, though. If he gets injured, we're in for a long year. Backup is going to be Ryan Brown, who actually, now I think about it, I don't think I went over the quarterback on the depth chart I made. I had Marcus Davila as the backup because I thought that was kind of what the talk was going into camp. Sounds like Brown's going to be the guy to back him up. Now, if let's say, I don't even want to say this, but if there's a big time injury, there's a lot of season left to go, maybe they go with Davila. I think Brown's probably the guy that, if Hudson misses a game or a quarter or whatever, they're going to insert Brown. But we'll see. From a starting standpoint, though, we're great there. Tight end room, same. Max Clare, he's going to have a big year. He's healthy, ready to go. George Burham is going to be a talent. He, I think, was 220 last year. He's now 260, so he's gained a lot of weight. He's very athletic. He was like a hurdles champion in high school. Drew Beaver's a pretty solid third guy. So I like the tight end room. I like the wide receiver. I like pretty much the whole offense. Offensive line, though, is where I really like it. And if you talk to some other people in the Big Ten, they don't know that Purdue's got a pretty solid offensive line. There was so many injuries last year, so many injuries in the offensive line. Again, like I said earlier, Gus Hartwick, he was playing right tackle. Your starting center was playing right tackle. They started off the season with not only Hartwick out for a couple games, Kaltenberger was out. The backup center was out for the first game. So we had our third string center against Fresno State. And unfortunately, he was okay. But, I think he joined the team late. He didn't even come in May. He came in almost July. So he'd been there for a month, and he was the starting center. So tons of injuries last year. Bo went down against Iowa. Musa was pretty much banged up all year. So that was very much a shredded unit. They got 4 returning starters, though, and it sounds like, Jalen Grant probably is going to be a backup. So you got 3 returning starters that are going to start. And then you got 2 transfers. Corey Stewart, who graded out very well for Ball State as your left tackle. I think he had an 80 PFF grade from pass blocking. And then DJ Wingfield, another very highly rated PFF guy from New Mexico, is probably going to start at right guard. These guys are all over 6'4", 300 pounds. I think it's going to be a pretty good unit. And like we talked about earlier, tons of depth. They have tons of depth there. They can go 2 or 3 deep, honestly, at most positions. So I don't know when the last time I've said that about a Purdue offensive line. So I think the pieces are there. I really do. I think this is going to be a good Purdue football team on the offensive side of the ball. Defensive side of the ball, there's a little more question marks, in my opinion, here. I think secondary is going to be much improved almost by default. They got more bodies there. They got a lot of guys that were first-time starters last year back. Guys like even Derek Rogers and Alessandro, they're pretty good backup pieces. You got a true freshman, Tarian Grant. We'll see how he does. He's going to start. You got Coy Beasley, who's going to be a good depth piece there. I'm probably going to play. Breedlove coming over, as well as Nyland Green from transfers. I think you got, pretty good mixture there at the corners. And then safeties, you got Dylan Thieneman obviously back, who's apparently gaining some weight. He's going to be much improved. Ryan Walters actually says the difference between him from last year to this year is night and day, and that's kind of scary. I mean, we could have an all-timer here, folks, at safety. And then Antonio Stevens, who played quite a bit last year, he did it okay. He did pretty good, so I think he's going to be okay at safety. So I think secondary is going to be improved. Linebacking unit, I think, will be it'll be improved because Jenkins is there now. Pretty much it was Yanni last year. Now it's Yanni and Jenkins. That's going to be a better unit. I'm excited to see how Jenkins does at linebacker, and also interested to see how many times he actually rushes the passer from like the edge spot. We'll see there. Defensive lines is obviously where the big questions are, mainly because you lose Nick Scorton. You lost Nick Scorton, which was a big loss. He's not there. He went to Texas A&M. This system, though, allows a lot of one-on-ones, and you kind of wonder, obviously, Scorton's a freak. I think he's projected first round. I've seen him as high as like top 10 in this coming up draft. But this system, I think, also did Nick did him some favors. So, hopefully does the same thing for guys like Sheeta Saleh, CJ Madden, and Will Helt. But as of right now, I just don't know if this unit's going to be as good. We'll see. Defensive end and nose tackle spots. Nose tackle guys are all back from last year. That should be improved then. Your DNs, you lost Malik Langham and you lost I think that really Malik. Jeffrey. I'm drawing a blank, but I think there was one other guy they lost. Oh, Nichols, excuse me, Isaiah Nichols. They lost those two guys to graduation. Pretty decent pieces. It's funny though, coming in, they weren't really heralded transfers. You got DeMar'Jay Lewis, hopefully back healthy. Joe Anderson, hopefully healthy now. Spider Dinkins from Kentucky. I think you got some pieces there. You got some bodies. Will it good be as long as it's as good as last year? I think this team's going to be in pretty good shape. Special teams last year, from the kicking and punting standpoint, was pretty much a disaster. Ben Freehill had a blood clot issue. He actually, though, I'll give him credit. He finished the year pretty good. Once he actually got back into the swing of things, got over those blood clots, he had some clutch field goals against IU. If they trot him out there, I'm pretty comfortable with Ben Freehill. I think he's a pretty decent kicker. I think they wanted Spencer Porath to win the job. It didn't happen as of right now. They have an or next to their name on the depth chart. So I think this is going to be a kicking battle going into week 3. Probably they'll see how they do week 1 and make a decision there. Punting unit, I think, is going to be better than last year. I think they like Crimmins more than they did Ansel. And, I think the coverage units are going to be – coverage unit last year was fine. I think they're going to be just as good. So, I think this team is pretty solid. I think they got good pieces. They got good depth. There's some star talent here with Card, Maccabee, Thieneman, Jenkins, potentially Jamal Edrin. So again, I think this team's good. So now let's talk about, we're 25 minutes in or 20-ish minutes in. Let's talk about the schedule, because this is where anybody who's not a Purdue fan's like, well, their schedule's so hard, which again, it is somewhat difficult. I'm not going to say it's not, but let's actually, look at it and really go over it and say, hey, is it as bad as maybe we think? All right, so let's look at the schedule. Purdue starts off this weekend against Indiana State. That should be a blowout. We don't really even have to talk about that. And then they have a week 2 bye, which again, I think at first we didn't like it. Now we like it. Get those guys healthy. Really, again, this is almost like it's basically a glorified preseason game, this Indiana State game. So, get up on them big, pull the starters. Let's be 28-0 at some point in the second quarter, halftime 35-7, 35-0, whatever. Those guys hopefully won't see the field in the third quarter. And if anybody's sort of dinged up, don't even play them. Just hold them back and let them get 2 weeks of rest. And then I think one of the biggest games, actually the next 2 weeks, week 3 and week 4, to me, are 2 of the biggest games on the schedule. Notre Dame. Purdue plays 4 top 10 teams, and that's part of the reason why the schedule is so tough. 4 top 10 teams. Notre Dame is the first top 10 team they play at home, 3:30 game a week after the bye. Now, Notre Dame plays Texas A&M on the road week 1 this weekend. I think it's a night game, I believe. That's going to be a tough game. Good environment there. Again, on the road. And then week 2, I think they play at home against Northern Illinois, who, again, Northern Illinois has always been a pretty decent MAC program. So, I mean, Notre Dame's probably going to blow them out, but it might be a little more competitive than people think. Then they got to play Purdue. So Purdue is going to be sitting there for 2 weeks. They get to watch Notre Dame at night, probably on Saturday, and then they get to watch them week 2. They get to completely scout them. And not only that, Notre Dame is going to have to probably bring out the entire playbook against Texas A&M. Purdue will not have to bring that out against San Diego State. So I think there's a big advantage here. That's why I honestly think out of those 4 top 10 games, and the nice thing about that is 3 of those games are at home. Out of the 4 top 10 games, I think this Notre Dame game, I think this might be the game where we can get an upset city. Now, if Notre Dame loses to Texas A&M, are they going to be a top 10 team? I don't care if they are not. Who cares? They're probably still going to be ranked. They're ranked number 7 right now. So circle that game. But let's be realistic here. Purdue probably loses, so they're going to be 1-1. Now, Purdue's got to go to Oregon State, 8:30 kickoff the next week in Corvallis. Oregon State has like 2 returning starters from last year's teams. They're kind of they're in chaos. They've obviously, well, technically they're still in their conference, Pac-12. Really, it's the Pac-2. And I think they have to, I don't know what's going on with that conference. But anyway, they're playing like a mountain, I think Mountain West schedule, I believe, is what they're playing. But that team's kind of a mess. I don't know what to expect. They actually, though, researching, I haven't done a deep dive on these guys, but they actually look like they've got a pretty decent transfer portal class incoming. So, hey, they could be salty. We'll see. But I think Purdue's going to win that game. At the very least, I think Purdue's going to be 2-1 going into the Nebraska game. And wouldn't it be a very Purdue thing if we beat Indiana State, upset Notre Dame, and then lose to Oregon State? But hey, I'll take them. If that's what happens, I'll take it, man. 2-1, I think 2-1 is very key for the first 3 games. You just got to be 2-1 going to Nebraska, and then you got Nebraska, which I believe is homecoming, noon game. Now, this Nebraska should be an improved team, which of course we've been saying that for like 10 years now. But this is going to be Nebraska's first road game, which they have a true freshman supposed stud quarterback in Raiola. This is his first true road game. So, hey, that could be a test. I got Purdue winning this game. I got Purdue being 3-1. So, hey, we're 3-1 going into Wisconsin. Now, this is going to be a road game. We've not beaten Wisconsin since 2003 on the road. Or it might have been 2004. I always get that wrong. I think it was 2000. No, it was 2000. It was 2003. 2003 is last time we beat Wisconsin on the road. 21 years later, can we do it again? I'm going to say no until we actually beat Wisconsin. So 3-2 on the road against Illinois. I think this Illinois team is not all that good. And honestly, they're probably, I would pick them towards the bottom of the Big Ten. I think Purdue handles business, gets the win. We are now 4-2. So the first half of the schedule, we're 4-2. Hey, that's pretty good. But again, we haven't played the 3 top 10 teams. Oregon comes into town on a Friday night. They'll probably be a top 5 team at that point. Well, they are right now, but they'll probably stay a top 5 team. Now, they do play Ohio State the week before. So they got a home game against Ohio State on Saturday. That is going to be an emotional game, win or lose. Then they got to travel to West Lafayette on a Friday night for a Friday night game. Still, though, I'd love for Purdue to win this game, but I can't pick that. I can't pick that upset. So Purdue will be 4-3 going to Northwestern. Let me back up a little bit. After the Oregon game, Purdue's got a bye. So that's actually a pretty good spot for a bye game or bye week. Excuse me. Then we got Northwestern playing Purdue. I think Purdue should win that game. Northwestern, I think, played a little bit over their skis last year. I don't think they're going to be very good this year. Purdue is going to win that game, making them 5-3. Now, 4 games left. We got to play at Ohio State. Purdue's probably going to lose that game. That is going to make us 5-4. Home game then the following week against Penn State, who will probably, again, be a top 10 team. That's probably going to be a tough one to win. I do think that Purdue might be able to beat either Notre Dame or Penn State. I think they can get one of those games. So we'll say a loss, though, making them 5-5. So this is kind of, I think, the key of the season. I think Purdue, at the very least, needs to be 5-5 going into the last 2 weeks. The last 2 weeks are road games at Michigan State and at IU. I think at the very least they can win one of those games. So if they're 5-5, I think we're going to be in great shape. And for this podcast, if you will, let's have some fun. Purdue beats Michigan State and beats IU. They're 7-5. Hey, I mean, honestly, 7-5 to me is not necessarily the ceiling. I think the ceiling would be, as I just said a minute ago, Purdue beats either Penn State or they beat Notre Dame. That puts them now at 8-4. Do I think that's going to happen? Probably not. But I think honestly, I think 7-5 is very attainable. I really do. I think I said that in a video I made months ago. 7-5 is attainable, guys. Will it happen? I don't know. 6-6. If 6-6 happens, let's just say every prediction I said went right, and then we lose to Michigan State and beat IU. Hey, to me, that's a great season. 6-6. A bowl game is the goal. A bowl game is 100% the goal. 6 wins. Even if Purdue got 5 wins, I think it would be somewhat of a. I don't want to say a success, because to me, 5-7, a losing record is not necessarily, hey, we had a great year. I think it would be, though, an improvement on last year. Well, obviously, it'd be an improvement. It'd be a tougher schedule this year, and we would win an extra game. So let's just say, if the same results happen and Purdue lost to Oregon State, but beat IU and lost to Michigan State, that's 5 wins. I mean, that would be a pretty decent year, I think. Would I be disappointed? Probably. And again, a lot of this too, I hate to say it, but like a lot of this comes down to how healthy can Purdue stay. I think there is a little bit more depth this year that we can like sustain a couple guys missing a game or two. We cannot sustain any games missed, we cannot handle any games without Hudson Card. We need Hudson Card close to 100% all year. That's the big thing. Hudson has to stay healthy for this 7-5 to happen. That's my opinion, at least. So that's the schedule there. So with that, it's been about 30 minutes. It's kind of been a deep dive. Again, 7-5, I think, is somewhat realistic if Purdue stays healthy. 6-6. So where would I put the floor? Probably the floor to me would be, well, if Purdue stays relatively healthy, I think Purdue is going to at least win 4 games. So I would put the floor around 4, the ceiling at 8. I think 4-8, 8-4 is your floor and ceiling ratio there. Now, things obviously, if Hudson, I'm not going to say it, but if major injuries happen, that ceiling can obviously, that floor can get lowered. But we're going to hope that doesn't happen. As far as this weekend against Indiana State, I guess we'll tap in an Indiana State preview. I don't really know much about Indiana State. I know they've struggled the last few years. I think they won 1 game last year, if I recall. If they won a game at all, I'm pretty sure it was just 1. They're not a very good team. Purdue beat these guys, I think, 56-0 in 2022 with Aiden O'Connell. I expect to have a similar game. Maybe not 56-0, probably like 49-7, 49-10. We'll see how deep Purdue gets in the depth chart. But I think Purdue should handle business pretty easily. What I am most looking forward to seeing is I want to see the offense. I want to see them, run the ball down their throat. They're probably going to be pretty vanilla. I want to see how Rigby does. I'm really interested to see how Edrin does, and the rest of the wide receivers. To me, a successful game plan would be, hey, let's run the ball. Let's do some play action, basic stuff. Let's get a couple of touchdowns on the board in the first quarter. Let's get some turnovers, some shut them out. And, let's get a 28, 35, something. Let's get in the 30s going into halftime. And then let's pull the starters. And then third quarter, let's play Ryan Brown at quarterback. And let's score another couple touchdowns. And then fourth quarter, let's play Davila. And then let's rotate kickers, see how they do. I think that's kind of the game plan, right? And then be healthy, get no injuries going into week 2, the bye. Rest these guys up. And again, if there's anybody that's kind of on the fence, questionable, or even like somewhat probable, just rest them. You don't really need them against Indiana State. So I like this week 2 bye. It actually is pretty nice, especially because there's 2 bye weeks this year. Now, if this was the only bye week on the schedule, that would be a problem. That would not be a good thing. I would not take that trade off. But because there's like a bye week between, I think it was a week, after week 7, it's a great time for bye. After the Oregon game, that's right. So looking forward to this season, man. I really am. I think this is going to be a good year. I think we need it to be a good year to help recruiting, to attract more talent. I think Purdue Athletics right now is in a good spot with Purdue basketball going to the Final Four. It sounds like we have like the most season ticket sales we've ever had in a long, long time. So every game should be pretty close to a sellout, which is going to be awesome. I mean, you got some big time teams coming in here too, like Notre Dame, Oregon, and Penn State, and then besides Northwestern, pretty much every team coming into West Lafayette's a pretty big name, including Nebraska. So great home schedule, man. Looking forward to it. Football's here. We finally made it. I think people are sleeping on this Purdue football team, and I love that the guys and coaches are using this as motivation. I think Ryan Walter said it best. I don't know what he said exactly, his exact quote, but he's basically said, let's go out and show them week 1. I'm pretty sure their message was screw the media. That's kind of their, hey, let's show these guys how good we really are. So I think that's a great message. It's kind of like Northwestern last year, not the same circumstances, but hey, everybody thought Northwestern was going to win maybe 1 game last year, and they won 8. So that really can, I mean, if you play sports, adversity can really, especially in the offseason, can really get guys buying in, can get a close-knit group, and good things can happen. So I'm looking forward to it. So with that, I appreciate it. This is the Big Time Boiler. I'm going to try to make recaps and previews kind of probably, let's be realistic. I'll probably do a one video of kind of a recap and then a preview looking ahead. Don't know if I'll get one for after the Indiana State game, although with it being a bye week, I'll probably try to do a preview at some point 2 weeks from now, talking probably about the Indiana State game a little bit and also looking ahead at Notre Dame. At that point, we'll have 2 weeks of Notre Dame footage. We'll see how good they really are. So with that, man, boiler up. Looking forward to it. Football's here. We made it. God bless you. We'll see you next time.